what's up guys? This is Sheila from Cacao Culture. Welcome back to our channel, the best place for cacao farmers, chocolate makers, and entrepreneurs. In this episode, we'll talk about the last step in our bean-to-bar chocolate making series, which is molding chocolates. Chocolate molds comes in different sizes, shapes, and materials. And in this last step, it sounds so simple, right? Just pour and mold your chocolate and then you're done. However, if you don't do it properly, you can still end up with a lot of problems for your chocolate. So in this video, we'll talk about the different types of chocolate molds and how to mold your chocolates properly. So if you're interested to learn, please keep on watching. Before I begin, this video is part of our bean-to-bar chocolate making series, and we've already created videos for the different processes in our previous episodes. So please make sure to check those out. So now let's dive into the topic. First, we'll discuss the molding process. Always remember that your working environment for chocolate making should be between 20 to 21 degrees centigrade in temperature, and then your humidity is below 50%. In our previous episode about tempering chocolates, we talked about the ideal working environment when you are working with chocolates. So please make sure to keep that in mind when you're in the molding stage, because the environment also plays out a very important role. Here in the Philippines, it's quite a challenge, and we've discussed some tips on how to make your working environment ideal for chocolate making in our previous episode. So please make sure to check that out. After tempering, you have to mold the chocolate quickly or it may go out of temper, and you have to repeat the process all over again. Unless you have a continuous tempering machine or a chocolate warmer that will hold the temperature of the chocolate while you're doing the molding, you have to do this manually. So the first step is to pour the tempered chocolate into your mold. Personally, I prefer using a ladle to scoop the chocolate and to pour into the molds. If I'm working with a small batch of chocolate and for cleaner work, I also use a piping bag. If you are using machines, there are tempering machines that have automatic depositors that will deposit the correct amount into your mold, so it will be easier and cleaner for you to work. The second step is to tap or vibrate the chocolate mold to remove the air bubbles. So if you notice that your chocolates have holes, that may be because you didn't tap or vibrate the chocolate after molding. The third step is to scrape off the excess chocolate. The next step is to place the mold in the refrigerator for about 15 to 20 minutes. However, you need to be careful and not leave the chocolate in the ref overnight, kasi for sure magmo-moist yung chocolate natin in the refrigerator. So ideally, lagay lang natin yung chocolate in the ref for about 15 minutes or until you see na medyo nag-separate na siya sa molds. Finally, when it's ready, take it out from the ref and then carefully turn over your mold, and then the chocolate will simply fall out without any pressure. And then the final chocolate product is then wrapped and then packed. Next, let's discuss the different types of molds that's available out in the market. So we get asked a lot, where did we buy our molds or what molds are we using? So in the market, you may have seen different types of chocolate molds. Some molds are made out of plastic. Some are made out of silicone materials, and then there's what you call polycarbonate molds. Out of these three, the polycarbonate molds are the premium quality molds that most chocolate makers use. Polycarbonate molds bring out the perfect gloss and shine for your chocolates. These molds can distribute heat and temperature evenly. Lastly, they are sturdy and long-lasting. Chocolate molds also come in different shapes and sizes. There are flat molds, 3D molds, and magnetic molds. For the usual bean-to-bar chocolates, you'll use flat molds that are typically square or rectangular in shape. Now, these polycarbonate molds are quite expensive, so you should treat this as an investment. If you're just starting out, what I would recommend is that you start off with using plastic molds or either silicone molds, and these are readily accessible in different baking supply shops. However, if you're gonna use, for example, silicone molds, you will not get the gloss or the shine that you would typically get when you use a polycarbonate mold. Now, here are some tips in molding your chocolate. The tips that I'm going to share are related to polycarbonate molds because, as I've said initially, you have to treat them as investment because they don't come cheap. Tip number 1, heat your molds. Heat your molds so that it's closer to the temperature of your chocolate. So remember, you're working in a cold environment. So kung nasa 21 degrees yung room natin, our molds may be a bit colder than our chocolate, diba? So, magkakaroon ng temperature shock when you pour the tempered chocolate in cold molds. So, ma-out of temper agad yung chocolate natin and baka magka-problema tayo pag tatanggalin na natin siya sa molds. To heat your molds, you may use a hair dryer, heat gun, or have a specific heating cabinet just for your molds. So when heating the molds, the temperature of your mold should be about 2 to 4 degrees lower than your chocolate. For example, if you're working with dark chocolate, which is tempered at around 30 to 31 degrees centigrade, then your mold should be about 26 to 28 degrees centigrade. Tip number 2, treat your molds carefully. Treat them with care if you want to maintain the polished or glossy finish of your chocolate bar. Some chocolate makers don't wash their chocolate molds in between uses. They just polish the molds using cotton or kitchen paper. I had a mistake of washing our polycarbonate molds using a sponge with a scrubber and then ended up scratching the surface of the mold. So when I use this to mold my chocolate, the finished product, you can actually see scratches or streaks on my chocolate. So just be careful and always keep that in mind so that you don't scratch your chocolate molds. Tip number 3, refrigerate only for a few minutes. Personally, I think if you can keep your room in about 20 to 20 degrees centigrade, then you can just leave the chocolate to rest outside. You don't have to put it in the refrigerator. But since it's usually hot here in the Philippines, we recommend that you put the chocolate in the refrigerator to set for about 15 to 20 minutes. However, as I've said earlier, don't leave it overnight because the fridge is cold and moist and it may cause your chocolate to bloom. Tip number 4, choose a classic design. So this may apply for new chocolate makers or for those who's just starting out. As I've said again and again, polycarbonate molds are not cheap. So when you invest in choosing a design for the polycarbonate molds, I would suggest you choose a classic design that's not tied just to one occasion. For example, like a Christmas tree design, because you will not be able to use that on other occasions. Also, I would suggest not to choose molds with very intricate designs because mahirap silang linisin. And if hindi mo nalinis properly yung molds mo, it will affect the next batch. In our next episode, we'll be answering some of your most asked questions, those that you have sent to our email, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. If you find value in our videos, please hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified when we upload a new video. In the meantime, please make sure to watch our previous episodes. We like to talk about cacao, chocolate making, and entrepreneurship. Thank you for watching our video. Remember, spread love and chocolate. See you on the next one. Bye!